When all you have is a hammer, what's that phrase I like? Everything looks like a nail. Fox News anchors, reporters, and analysts last night after the vice presidential debate swarmed to those damn CBS moderators were so biased. They did everything that made JD look bad and Tim Walz look good. This is all they have. This is the only tool they have. Here's Brett Baer and Martha McCallum and Brit Hume weighing in on the moderation, which was so unremarkable that it's just there's really nothing to even talk about. When I think about the VP debate, how did Walz do? How did Vance do? Okay, there was one time where the mics were cut when JD Vance wouldn't stop going multiple minutes over his time. Other than that, I don't remember anything the moderators did. Like referees in a game, if they're doing a good job, you just don't really notice them very much. We didn't really notice the moderators. Fox News doesn't like it. And something tells me that what this is really about is Fox News is angry that they're not getting a debate.
For the Tiananmen Square protest, when he was actually really in Nebraska, he said sometimes he just says things and he's a knucklehead talking about things. Again, no questions about China, no questions about Ukraine. And there was some questions about fact checking and whether it was fair and balanced across the way. Here with us tonight, Dana Perino, Harold Ford Jr., Laura Ingraham, Jesse Waters, Brit Hume joins us remotely. Brit, your thoughts coming out of this debate?
Well, the moderators were obnoxious and made it feel like 3-on-1 on Vance. And Vance...
It's always 3-on-1. That's their talking point they have.
...was just fine. He seems to have been, his skills as a debater and a speaker seem to have been honed to some extent by just these several months on the campaign trail. And for one so young, he seemed, in terms of his knowledge of policy, to run rings around poor Governor Walz, who I think did not have a very great night. As you say, Brett, he got better as the night wore on. But if you're rating this debate on points, it wasn't close.
It's so funny because, listen, again, I want to make clear, I, as a biased observer and as someone who's consuming this stuff daily, my view is that on substance, Tim Walz absolutely knocked it out of the park. If you look at on abortion, did you hear the things JD Vance said? And comparatively, Tim Walz's empathetic but also accurate understanding of women's bodily autonomy, what works, what doesn't, and how to actually reduce unwanted pregnancy, which Minnesota has done. Oh, but on policy, Brit Hume says JD Vance was good. On the issue of health care, JD Vance twisted himself into a pretzel. Obamacare's bad, but we're going to keep the stuff Obamacare does because it's good. But Donald Trump is actually the one that saved Obamacare, except everything Donald Trump did actually was an attempt to get rid of Obamacare. Nonsense. And then in comes Tim Walz and explains, okay, listen, here's the deal. The reason you need an individual mandate is otherwise you get adverse selection. And that doesn't make the risk pool work. You need the risk pool to be diverse. This is just the fundamentals about insurance. It's just math. It's actuarial. It's statistical. It's not about Democrats or Republicans. So Brit Hume is talking about how on policy, JD Vance was running circles around Tim Walz. I didn't see that at all. But they need to do anything they can to extract advantage from this. And they're not going to be able to because the audience saw it as basically a tie debate that won't move the needle one way or the other. Then they go to Laura Ingraham last night. And Laura Ingraham, again, talks about it was just unbelievable. It was unbelievable what JD Vance was able to do.
Those who question Trump's choice of Vance as his vice presidential running mate, I think those doubts should have been put to rest tonight. I don't think, and this is my 8th presidential campaign I think I covered, I don't think I've ever seen a Republican so deftly maneuver what was smug and arrogant bias on the part of those moderators. Almost every question was designed to make Republicans look bad, slanting Trump's views on child care. And yet Vance seemed to take it all in stride. And he really, I think with most questions, really showed his humanity and also his knowledge of the issues. I don't think he could have done better under the circumstances, and I think that is very reassuring to the public who thought he was perhaps an ogre or anti-woman or didn't like kids or some...
Well, you know what's interesting about Laura Ingraham saying he couldn't possibly have done any better. Every poll says it was a tie, so I guess the absolute best that JD Vance has in him, and it impressed Laura Ingraham, was to do about as well as Tim Walz. So what's the takeaway? The takeaway is that according to these Republicans, they never lose debates. They get screwed by the moderators, sure. They get screwed by the camera angles. They get screwed by the mics or the timers or the rules or the questions are designed to make them look bad. It's everything other than J.D. Vance was just sort of okay. He lied articulately, and it didn't really impress too many people. And the takeaway is it's probably not going to do much one way or the other for the Trump-Vance campaign. So Fox News, as usual, deploying the hammer they have and turning everything into a nail. It's all unfair. Were it not for the questions, the microphones, the positioning on the stage, the moderators, the fact-checking, were it not for those things, J.D. Vance's obvious domination of Tim Walz would have been noticeable. The American people don't seem to have fallen for it if you look at the instant results of post-debate polling. And that's a good thing that it didn't work.